Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. It's such a great pleasure to see you, Mushtaq, after all these years, to be among you, celebrating the 37th anniversary of such a renowned, inspiring institution, the Third World Solidarity, and the 35th annual dinner. I may have attended the 10th annual dinner some 25 years ago. I was 3 years old, by the way, then. But it really gives me such a great pleasure to be here with you today. I have been asked to say a few words on the situation in Palestine. I would like to speak a little bit about Shireen Abu Akleh, the veteran journalist and a close friend of mine who was killed, assassinated while doing her job in Jenin refugee camp in the occupied territory. As you may be aware, only yesterday, the US State Department has decided that while the weight of evidence suggests the bullet that killed Shireen was fired by an Israeli soldier, it is impossible, they say in their statement, to determine with certainty, and therefore no further action will be taken. It is worth noting here, my friends, that 9 investigations, including by the United Nations, by the Palestinian government, as well as Palestinian and Israeli human rights organizations, by numerous US and international media outlets like the CNN, Washington Post, the New York Times, all have concluded that it was an Israeli soldier that killed Shireen. I mention this, my friends, because the case of Shireen perfectly illustrates the single most pressing problem to address for anyone wishing peace in our region and beyond, in our region, in your region, and in the world. That is impunity and the lack of accountability. That is the US lack of credibility and neutrality when it comes to Israel. When I mention this, my friends, I mention this simply to say that getting away with things is exactly what got us to the situation we are in today. From the original ethnic cleansing in 1948, all the way to the ethnic cleansing of today in Masafer Yatta in Hebron, Israel has been put above the law. There are laws, my friends. There are international laws and norms that we have created together after the horrors of the Second World War. There are laws against ethnic cleansing, against apartheid, against the forcible transfer of populations. There are laws against settlement building in occupied territory, any occupied territory. There are laws against the acquisition of territory by force. Israel, as you know, has unilaterally annexed and occupied East Jerusalem and the Syrian Golan Heights. There are laws, my friends, about the treatment of prisoners. Right now, there are 640 Palestinians in administrative detention. You know what that means, administrative detention? It means people are held with no charge or trial. Israel now, as we speak, holds 170 child prisoners. There are laws, my friends, about the treatment of civilians, including journalists, by an occupying force. Israel has broken all these laws, my friends, repeatedly and in full view of the world, all of us. And yet, it never pays a price. Why? And Shireen's case has proven more of the same. Now, any journalist covering Palestine, or covering Ukraine, or covering anywhere in the world, would fear for their lives, and would think that their killers will bear no consequences. Just like Israel as a country knows that it will not face any consequences, whatever action it takes, which leaves me with this one conclusion, my friends. Given the outsized imbalance of power between the Israeli and the Palestinian sides, there is no route to liberation, freedom, and justice for Palestinians outside a mixture of diplomacy and popular pressure. But if Israel is not held to account, if any aggressor is not held to account, what hope lies there? If Israel is not held to the same standards same rules as everyone else, what hope is there? If the powerful countries of this world refuse to take international law seriously, what hope is there for any of us? That, my friends, honorable members of parliament, lords, mayors, distinguished guests, that is the situation in Palestine. That is the situation beyond Palestine. A situation that has serious repercussions globally on all of us. Because the law cannot be subdivided, because you must apply the law equally. And trust me, my friends, the law must be paramount. Otherwise, we are left with the rule of the jungle. And trust me as well, that as someone who lived under the lawlessness of the Israeli occupation and colonization and apartheid, you don't want to know what that is like. If we want to progress, all of us, as a family of solidarity, third world solidarity, if we want to progress towards peace in Palestine and indeed elsewhere, we need to start doing one thing. One thing. First, all of us ensure that the rules apply to all equally. No one above the law, no exceptions, application of the law right across the board. That's all. That's all we need to do together, my friends. Uphold the law. Thank you.